So please mute yourself if you are not the person speaking. Thank you very much. Welcome to September first virtual, and it's already fall. It really is scary how fast this time passes. Scary and kind of wonderful in a way too. So, because I think a lot of us love fall. Our first, and it looks like our only feature today, is Angela Narciso Torres. And we're so happy to have her because I've been pestering her for a long time to get her to come. And she finally said yes. So here she is. Our other feature, I'm sorry to say, seems to be indisposed today, and I'm going to try to have her back another time. So let me introduce Angela, and then she can get started. Angela Narciso Torres is the author of What Happens Is Neither from Four-Way Books in 2021, Blood Orange, winner of the 2013 Willow Books Literature Award for Poetry, and the chapbook To the Bone by Sundress in 2020. Recent work appears in Poetry, Prairie Schooner, and Poetry Northwest. A graduate of Warren Wilson MFA program for writers and Harvard Graduate School of Education, Angela has received fellowships from Breadloaf Writers Conference, Illinois Arts Council, and Ragdale Foundation. She received the Yeats Poetry Prize from the W.B. Yeats Society of New York. Born in Brooklyn and raised in Manila, she currently resides in San Diego. She serves as a senior and reviews editor for Rhino Poetry. Thanks so much for coming today, Angela.
Thank you, Robbi, and I'm so honored and privileged to be here with you on a Saturday morning. Robbi and I met one summer, I think it was, in Gatsby Books. I walked in this bookstore. I was new to the community, and Robbi was reading. And I said, I have to meet this woman after her reading because her poetry is just amazing. And I was looking for community since I had just moved here. And since then we've kept in touch, and she has been such a wonderful, wonderful literary citizen. And Robbi, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am here to read from my second book. The first time I read for Robbi, it was in Laguna Hills, I believe, and I read from my first book, Blood Orange. And now I have a new book, well, newish. It came out in 21 from Four-Way Books. It's called What Happens Is Neither, and it's an elegy and homage to my parents, whom I lost in kind of quick succession in 2009. My mother from Alzheimer's and my father from late stage cancer. And really, the book has been a way of processing the grief and loss, the devastating loss of both my parents, but also it's a book that has helped me to kind of reinvent myself and establish a way of moving back into the light after such deep losses. So I'll be reading primarily from the book and then also some new work. And then I'm excited to hear all of you read some of your poems too. I'll start with a titled poem, and the title is also part of the first line. What happens is neither the end nor the beginning, yet we're wired to look for signs. Consider the peonies. One makes a perfect bud after months of nothing. Another's leaves are ringed with black rot. How can I not think end? How can I not say beginning? Leaves fall when the days shorten because a tree must reduce to its tough parts. Twig, branch, bark. My mother sleeps away the daylight. She nods off while chewing a spoonful of fish and rice. Her head a peony gone to seed. Father calls to say she doesn't recognize him. Turning to him, she cried out, certain a stranger was in her bed. He played his violin till she slept, a leaf in late fall curling into itself. In autumn, chlorophyll disappears, canceling green from leaves so yellow and magenta can blaze. In my mirror, I see her, the smile that favors a cheek, eyes slanted in the shape of small fish we eat for breakfast. Trees know best than now of things. What goes on has been going on for centuries. Washing dishes, I rest a foot on my standing leg. A fork clangs on the tile. I rinse a cracked cup. I try not to think of endings. The second poem is in the form of the Golden Shovel, a form that was created, as you know, by Terence Hayes, and it borrows a line from William Butler Yeats from his poem, The Circus Animal's Desertion, and the line is the foul rag and bone shop of the heart. So each of the words in that line provides the last word of each of the lines in my poem. So pay attention and be listening to those words, for those words. The foul rag and bone shop of the heart, a golden shovel using a line from William Butler Yeats. I'm not just talking about the sleepless days and nights, the nonstop nursing, the foul smelling diapers. I'm talking of how my body reeked, a soaked rag of curdled milk, drool, and leaky diapers, and how I'd wake already beyond blood, bone, and breath, the baby still at my breast. But when I pushed past a shop window the other day, I turned to do a double take, a glimmer of a woman I once knew. No, it wasn't just the wind-tossed hair, the morning weary face, but oh, the heart, the heart. So September is my mother's birthday month, and this is a poem I dedicated to her, and I wrote this several years ago. One of those poems that you revise and revise and revise. It took me almost maybe 10 years to get it right. And sorry, I don't know why I'm getting that reverb. Are you hearing a reverb sound? An echo?
I keep trying to mute Mary,
I'm wondering.
and she keeps coming unmuted. Mary McCarthy, there are two of you. You need to, one of you needs to leave. I don't know which one it is.
Okay. Is that better? I feel like I'm putting my phone far away because sometimes the phone can also cause
It wasn't you. It was, I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. I want to make sure that everybody can hear. So as I was saying, this poem is dedicated to my mother. It has some Tagalog or Filipino words in it, and those are titles of kundimans. These are folk love songs that she learned to play on the piano. And this is a poem I wrote shortly after she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It became some sort of memory box or a snapshot of how she was at the time, and also the mother I knew growing up. And I was just desperate to hang on to the mother I knew, and all the things she loved, and the music and the food and the words and her perfume, all those things that completed a picture of her as I knew her before her illness. It's called Sunding, and it's sundowning, and it's for my mother Carmen. Here's a picture of her in her younger years. Okay, sundowning for my mother Carmen. The sweetest meat clings to the bone, my mother says, knifing her steak. Carmen, silver spade on my tongue. Mahjong nights, her mother and father gone, she cried herself to sleep, blamed in the morning for her mother's losing hand. Unlucky tears. The sweetest meat, she begins at dinner, tearing off a chicken leg. What will she recall by morning? Named for Our Lady of Mount Carmel, she pinned brown scapulars under our shirts, wet stamps that cleave to our backs. Carmen, prayer on the breath. Amid potted ferns, she works a jigsaw puzzle. Bizet on the radio. Unable to sleep, She made me lie next to her. My brothers clambered the banyan trees. My leg twitched, a broken clock. Her kisses are guava and rust. She sings kundimans her mother sang, Sampaguita, dahil sayo, saan ka man. Sunday morning, puzzle pieces strewn on yesterday's news. Maria Callas on the phonograph. Carmen. Citrine fire. When she plays the piano, the lovebirds fall silent. Alabaster eggs tremble in glass bowls. Afternoons, she woke with an urge to bite the brown loaf of my arm. The marks on my flesh faded by sundown. The sweetest meat clings, she insists, peels a mango, amber rivers tracing her elbows. A trail of l'air du temps wafts in her wake. I follow it to her room, dab the scent on my wrists and throat. Evenings, she sang kundimans, Hating Gabi, Nasaan Ka, Irog, Carmen, Song of the Mangosteen Moon. Before you go, I want to give you something. She hands me a thimble painted with a map of Cuba. We've never been to Cuba. In the dream, a sister pours rosary beads in her cupped hands. Upon waking, a dead wasp curled in her palm. Thank you. So this next poem is for my grandfather on my other side, and it's called Translating the Dead. It also has some Filipino words in it, but it's a different kind of translation. So I'll just read the poem. Translating the Dead. 2 days after my lolo died, his letter arrived from Manila. Sky blue aerogram, tri-folded and sealed by the aunt who kept vigil, typing for him what words he had left on the Smith Corona with a broken lowercase I that pierced holes through paper. I remember school nights finding him still awake, listening for my backpack's thud on the wood floor leading to his bedroom. Slowly he'd rise, a smoker's cough clearing his throat, his voice tunneling in the half-dark. Are you here now, Iha? A direct translation from the Tagalog. Nariyan ka na, anak? Meaning, you're here? Meaning, I've been waiting, dear one. Holding the crinkled sheet against the October sky, I see another sky, deeper blue, pinpricks of light shining like day-glow stars. Yes, Papa, I'm here. I'd like to shift gears a bit and share some new work. I heard from a few of you that you are either recovering or have had long COVID, and I too got COVID in 2021 in October, and it wasn't a very easy case to get over. It took a long time, and I was in isolation for some time. And in that period, I started exchanging tanka poems with a friend of mine in Florida, a Brazilian poet named Lucia Liao. And it became kind of like a daily ritual. I'd send her a poem, she'd send one back, and in the tanka form, which is, as you know, 5 lines, using the syllabic structure of 5-7-5-7-7. Give or take a few syllables, but it became kind of like part of my healing process, and it meant a lot to me. And some of them have come out in magazines, and I'd like to read just the first part, not 30 days worth, just maybe 10 days worth. When I turn this way, it will be my voice. When I turn this way, it's Lucia's voice, so that you'll hear the 2 voices conversing with each other. The series is called Days of a Thousand Weathers, an epistolary. And this is just an excerpt. So I'll start with my voice, and then as I turn, it will be the second voice. Only the moon came over the hills, a good nurse in sensible shoes, my breath caught in the branches of my ribs. The only house I visit is you on the veranda, collecting the mountains. Pale light breathes in color, blue dress, the red heart of your shawl. The form will come, but the day brings no guarantees except whole mending peace. In crevices, rosemary embraces mustard and spirits. One day I could finish my sentences. The next, today, a gray dove struts on the fence, unfolds its note to the wind. Milk white mist fringes the balcony, hands pressed to a chilled pane. To learn to speak quietly at such a distance to you. My nature is dust. Members of my clan, breadcrumbs, rest in reunion. On the breakfast table, red jam configures the hours. To enter a garden of loss, the shyness of moss covering the ground, yet holding its own. I close the gates. At dawn, my eyes are green. You miss the daily things you can't do, held by doors or days, little things, pruning roses, salting a stew, how the mailbox creaked open. This bed of roses, the sea, a truck, ashes, soil, lettuce, nails. The wrong side of, to make ones, to raise the, to get into, with, climb out of, put it to. Away from the house, the garden turns informal. A bird scratches the sky, its backbone reveals. Boredom is a treat, a treatment in the tallest solarium where the hawk surveys the hills. From up there, nothing is new. Everything exhales, begin. Conjugating days as a hawk circles the plains, small mammals scurry for cover. The cactus flowers, pink upturned faces, dreaming. At noon, the red hawk preens over the steel tower, beak pointing west of the hills. I stir milk and tea, look up, and he's flown. I want to forget the day I will not remember. You counting raindrops for me. If presence were a name, I would label all those beads. Getting older, this wisdom, the taste as it vanishes. One day I could riot, the next brought me gifts of flowers and fears. The lilies you sent open like letters perfumed, a cacophony of snowy trumpets. Wiping the table, amber dust falls. On the 10th day, rain. The hawk on the tower tucks beak to chest. Almond speck in the storm's milky froth, a seed scheming its rebirth. So, Robbi, I want to check with you what about time. How much time do I have left? I have.
Well, technically you could have the whole half hour if you want it. Just read as much as you want up to that point.
Oh, okay. Well, I see it's 11:21, so maybe 3 poems.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So after COVID, it became really hard for me to write beyond those tankas. And I realized how form is really our friend when we are struggling with content and writer's block. One of the forms that's been useful for me is the cento, the Italian form where you borrow lines from a secondary source and fashion them into your own poem. In this next poem, I borrow lines from Roland Barthes' morning diary, which he kept after his mother died. Just a journal of his grief and loss and the ebb and flow of days following his mother's passing. And instead of just making it a straight cento or cento, I made it into the pantoum form, and it really helped me to find words for my loss. This one is called Morning Diary, after Roland Barthes' journal called Morning Diary. Morning, a cruel country where I'm no longer afraid. The formal beginning of a long bereavement. This terrifies me. I know my morning will be chaotic. The formal beginning of the long bereavement. 18 months for a mother, a father. I know my morning will be chaotic. We don't forget, but something vacant settles in. 18 months for a mother, a father. Each of us has his own rhythm of suffering. We don't forget, but something vacant settles in. Suffering like a stone around my neck, deep inside me. Each of us has his own rhythm of suffering. This morning, the offer of lightness. Suffering like a stone around my neck, deep inside of me. I ask for nothing but to live in my suffering. This morning, the offer of lightness. For the first time, I decide to wear a colored scarf. I ask for nothing but to live in my suffering. I limp along through my morning. For the first time, I decide to wear a colored scarf. First Sunday morning without her. I limp along through my morning. Henceforth and forever, I am my own mother. First Sunday morning without her. Everyone is extremely nice, yet I feel entirely alone. Henceforth and forever, I am my own mother. From now on, my death would kill no one. Everyone is extremely nice, yet I feel entirely alone. This terrifies me. From now on, my death would kill no one. Morning, a cruel country where I am no longer afraid. All right. Thank you. On a lighter note, I would like to read this poem that's a love poem to my dog as well as to my husband. So you can decide which is which. This is based on, the title is based on a Spanish movie called Amores Perros, which means the love of dogs. And it's a movie, some of you may have seen it. It's a movie about various characters who love their dogs, and it's different vignettes, but the poem doesn't have much to do with the movie. I just like the title. Amores Perros. Sometimes I love you the way my dog loves his all-beef chew bone, worrying the knuckled corners from every angle, mandibles working like pistons. His eyes glaze over with that faraway look that says he won't quit till he reaches the soft marrow. His paws prop the bone upright, it slips. He can't clutch it tight enough, bite hard enough. A dog's paws weren't meant for gripping. And sometimes I love you the way my dog brushes his flank, nonchalant against my legs, then flops on the floor beside me while I read or watch TV. His heft warms. One of us is hungry, the other needs to pee, but we sit, content as wildflowers. Minutes pass, hours. Okay, just one last poem. This poem is a self-portrait, and my book has 3 of them. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like that dog poem. Phoebe likes it too. That's my dog, not my husband. Okay. All right. Self-portrait as revision. This is the last poem in the book, and it's short. I just wanted to end with this idea that, for one, poems are always in revision. It's all a draft until you die, as one of my poetry mentors said. But it's the same with the self. It's all a draft until we die, and we just keep reinventing ourselves through all the storms that we pass through. And it's a process. Self-portrait as revision. I am the storm-torn palm frond draped on the balcony wall. I am the cumin in the soup stirring the lentils sleep. I am the olive's skeletal pit, the cat's paw, the thistle spear, the clay in the kiln cast into a small flask to hold centuries of musk. For weeks I do not sing, though I gush, an underground rill carving blindly to the sea. I succumb to thunder, the urchin's sting, the softness of moss. This is my prayer. I am driftwood, parched in white heat, soaked in January rain, a seashell pressed to its pale grave. The wind rises, rewriting the hymnals of dunes. I am hurricaned, worn smooth again. Thank you so much. Thank you, Robbi, and thank you all for paying attention and being such great listeners. And now I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, and for your grace in picking up and reading all those extra poems. I probably would have flipped out. So thank you so much. So now we've got the second part of our program, which is the open mic. And there aren't very many people here today, so we have room for everybody who wants to read 2 poems or 5 minutes, whichever comes first, okay? So our first reader is Rose.
Oops, I'm leading the pack. Hang on. So I'm reading for most of you know that I'm a German British Peruvian who lives in Lima, and I was born in Germany. I left Germany to travel, and this is one of my recollections from my childhood. I grew up in the German version of West Virginia for various reasons, if you can imagine that. And these are the women from that time. The old women of Saxony. They sat, their legs open, their floral skirts falling between, aprons, always something to do in their hands, a bowl resting on their thighs, knitting needles clicking, picking peas from the pods, hands with calluses, broken nails, black furrows, gray hair pulled into buns, the hairs that remembered their girlhood curling over wrinkled ears. Steel-rimmed glasses, except for Auntie Helen, who had the eyes of a hawk. No adornments. And girls they used to be. Sepia photos on the sideboards, the girls with their men, the girls coquette, their young men stiff, looking straight into the camera, in uniform, next to their girls, not touching. That was before the First War. They never came back, and the old women were left to their sisterhood. They worked the land, brought in peas, potatoes, beans from their gardens, chickens, a fearsome cockerel, warm eggs. There was the occasional rabbit a nephew had trapped. They loved us with harsh voices, rough hands, with berries, apples, and homemade jams. Hardy they were, these women, unafraid. They had seen the worst. We said it when Hitler was alive, and we say it now that we have the Bolsheviks here. All the same anyway. What more can they do to us? Shoot us? And they smiled. We escaped to the West. They couldn't come out. We couldn't go back. Survived well into the 50s. There were letters, old German handwriting, pencil on lined paper. Thank you. Now here's my second one. That's when I started traveling. I actually started in Antwerp. And this was my first impression of the first months. Jade mornings in dark alleys. Antwerp, the port city, 1959. Cobblestones. For a heartbeat, there are highlights in the small, rounded, slippery boulders polished by horses' hooves, motor cars, shoes, sneakers, vertiginous heels, and boots of all colors. Not only the light, even the air is furtive here. Rubbish bins overflow with last night's condoms, and the odor of old urine and feces is lifted and carried by the wind. The women huddle in doorways near advertising pillars. They share their stories on many mornings during a breather. Soup, deep drags on strong cigarettes, black coffee, and a cognac or two. Some of them, virtually literate, thrown into the street at 8 or 6 or 12, abused by fathers or stepfathers, beaten, abandoned, moved from orphanage to orphanage, foster home to foster parents. There are those who have kids. Head bent, the old woman walks, a scarf barely covering the curlers, her ankles swollen, her feet in slippers, a baguette under her arm. For years now, her place has been behind the till. Payment in advance, s'il vous plaît. She's doing evenings, dresses up. Big river pearls on long strings slipping between her blouse and those wrinkled two mounds pressed into a low-cut bra. Bright red lipstick collects in cracks just above her mouth. Her eyes don't smile. Voilà, monsieur. No receipt. It's cash for personal services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you so much. Those are terrific. I don't think I've heard those before. I'm going to post a link of Angela's work, of her website, so that you can have a better look and perhaps order things. Our next reader on the open mic is Dick Westheimer.
Hey all, Angela, I just loved your reading, especially the Tonka series. It's inspiring. Yeah, I'd love to be in a collaboration like that. Not under those circumstances, though. Let's find some other ones. I'm going to ask your forgiveness if I read my two latest poems. One, actually, I apologize, is still a little drafty. And could I share screen, Robbi? Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Thanks. Well, if you'd prefer not, I won't.
It's all right. Go ahead.
Okay. So this image, there's an exhibit of Jewish life in the mid-century that I've been asked to write a responsive poem to, even if it's not directly responsive. And this one is called, and I'll take the image down, Handwork in the Place of Jewish Aristocracy. My mother carried her troubles like pebbles in her purse, all settled beneath the league meetings, lunch with the ladies, the clatter of mahjong tiles, and Harriet's husband, that son of a bitch, and tea times and temple dues, and all those sideways looks wondering if Mom was really a member of their tribe. Grandpa Walensky had warned her, "You're not good enough for him," and by him he meant them, the German kind who'd tormented him when he married into their tribe. When Dad traveled on business, Mom would retreat to the basement where she kept her enamel paints, green and gold leaf, and a red that matched her lips and nails, all made up, even when alone. She'd take the smallest brushes and dip so delicately that even I, as a boy, was jealous. Dad never knew that the jewelry she made and painted was by her own hand, and he never asked why those pebbles were in her purse. And the second, I'm going to share a newly coined term called noctalgic. And for any of you who have gone out under hazy city skies and just been nostalgic or felt grief for not being able to see all the stars in the expanse of the Milky Way, you'll understand what noctalgic is, called sky grief. And the epigraph from this is Walt Whitman. I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. And the title is Reflection on the Still Silent Water. 1. We came for luminescence. The plankton here awaken late and long after the sun sets and glint beneath the still water of Tomales Bay. Like little galaxies, they spread as our hands trail over the side of the kayak, stirring eddies, slight and silent. Above, the Milky Way, like a shawl woven of silvered wool, drapes over the bare shoulder of the sky. Across to the north, a star falls. Its tail, as long as myth, persists for a full beat of breath. 1,000 lesser lights scatter, meadow flowers flung from horizon to horizon, and mingle with the creatures beneath. Plankton meets stars, meets plankton, meets stars. 2. Here, back home, the night sky is abraded by city lights, burned as if by bile fire. We are crowded with more hungry deer than stars, more sooted views than those meadow flowers. There is no Milky Way surging from the south, no goddesses and gods of night arrayed in their mantles of pinprick sparks. But there is a new scripture, a prayer for the noctalgic. Blessed are those who forget, which I cannot. I am cursed to have sat quiet in the night, wrapped in the perfect silence of stars, remembering.
Deborah, please turn off your mic. Thank you, Dick.
That was the breeze going by.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I particularly love the second one.
Thank you.
You've got so many new ones. I can't keep up with you. Okay. Our next person is Marc Petri.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to read a poem that I started working on in 1993, and I've been recently reviving. And it's called Whirlybird Ride. And I'll warn you, it's a bit difficult. So I'm drafting it again. I haven't read it publicly in 20 years. Whirlybird Ride. I sit at the Formica kitchen table and cried in flat tones, 'cause I couldn't take adults screaming. Daddy comes over and yells, "Stop screaming." I cry louder from my father's comfort. His eyes glaze blue, his voice lower, more scary. He yells himself white. Mommy comes into the kitchen, grabs Daddy from behind, her nail tearing filaments from his face. Slow motion silence. Red oozed from the pawn's face. He brushed her back with the sweep of his arm. Her head bounced on the carpet like a big mop clown head doll. Daddy, madder than drool, got so close his hot, sweet breath stuck to my neck, His body smelled more sweaty. His voice, in a high pitch, screamed, "Shut up!" The room stopped. He balled his left hand back like a big jackknife blade. His face, his eyes more small and glazy. His face set in concrete, except for a small twitch on his left slab. His hand came forward in a few bone seconds. I'm frozen in his gaze. Daddy struck me in the face. I whooshed louder and louder, shattering concrete cells, spun like a Panama fan. I didn't feel the pain until I hit the spongy wall, now hard. My ears rang in the draft before my flesh hits the mortar, and all went black. The boy heard his mother very slowly, his brain working, very tired. Voices echoed like secretions seeping from the table to drip my face on the floor. The world moved in slow, intense jerks. The blade snapped back in its sheath. I took a whirlybird ride, a roto boy, on a beautiful flight, until the stone block stopped and baby bounced and bounced and caught the gristmill floor.
Okay, Mark. I think that might have kind of used up your
Oh yeah,
time.
I don't plan to read anything else.
Yeah, it would be hard to follow yourself. Our next reader is Jim.
I have two poems, one very somber, one much lighter. The first one is called, appropriately, Old Man. I am an old man with three names, one from my mother's father, one from my own father, and one from a tortuous line of grandfathers. Don't bother looking up name meanings. They have no bearing on who I am or will become. Likewise, I'm not sure they carry any weight from who I was. They are simply names I use to distinguish myself from you and him, and oddly enough, from every other person the internet identifies as having exactly those names, exactly in that order. However, the names are not the focus of the moment. Let's focus on the admission that I am an old man who knows what he wants and who knows equally that he will never have it. Tell me, compared to that, what importance is there in a name or two or three? Old men tell old jokes, wear old clothes, bury their fathers and sometimes a child before they exit silently, leaving things undone that their own sons will stare at uneasily, then walk away from. That's how it is with old men. We were young, now we're not. And no matter our names, no matter our dreams, it usually works out that our sons bury us, sometimes with tears, sometimes without. And then to lighten the mood, I hope considerably, this is called Wallowing in the Obvious. Are you reading that paper, he asks, indicating the one I'm sitting on. Yes, I answer without smiling as I stand, turn the page, sit back down. Oh, are you here? She blurts out on entering the room I currently occupy. No, I say ruefully, I am still only a figment of your adolescent desire. Did you take this picture? He wonders aloud, ignoring the copyright and signature in the corner. Actually, it took me, is my reply, and I am taken by it again and again. You wrote these poems? She queries, looking at the authored photo on the book, then up at me. I've been waiting for this one. Not really, I say. Everyone knows the poems write themselves. Do you love me, my wife asks. I'm still here, I answer, smiling. I'm still here.
I think there's a song like that in Fiddler on the Roof.
Do you love me?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Our next reader is Victoria.
Hi, thank you so much, Angela. I liked very much listening to your work. This poem is called Paradise, and it's based on a true story. We were shopping for homes in the Paradise Estates, driving along the peaceful, perfect streets, identical roof peaks casting serrated shadows on unblemished driveways, bright green rectangular lawns. When we came upon the scene, an old man lying on his back behind a corner house, two men on their knees, one sweating, pressing his hands rhythmically against the old man's chest, the other breathing every few moments into his mouth. A young cop stood close by, hands on his hips, looking down. An old woman waited anxiously at a slight distance, searching the face of the officer for a clue, a magic trick, a miracle. One hand up to her mouth in fear, the other holding the old man's hat, as if he might rise at any moment and need it back, say, "I'm fine, you're being silly, dear." As if the officer in his blue uniform might flash his youthful smile and conclude in an official sort of way, "This is all a big mistake. Here is your husband. We give him back to you, perfect, peaceful, immortal." And today, here's this poem rising up in my mind like a shrill cicada, buried for 17 years, awakened and flexing its timbals, the strange memory of a day long forgotten, driving through the utopian streets of paradise. And this relatively short poem is actually in verse virtual right now. It's called The Passenger's Remains. This is from my mother. A little round blue bird made of glass, green leaves painted on a bright yellow bowl, sailboats painted on an ocean-colored scarf, a pink angel with a broken wing atop a music box. Inside, a scratched and faded Polaroid taken when she departed on the Queen Mary. She is a passenger standing at the rail. At last, she is as buoyant as the brilliant white clouds. The great horn is sounding. Streamers are spiraling through the air. Her white gloved hand is cupped to her mouth. She is shouting something you cannot hear, words that would have helped to heal you so very long ago. As she floats away, her eyes are bright with joyous anticipation, sparkling like two radiant stars.
Thank you so much. Our next to last reader will be Mary McCarthy.
First, I want to apologize to everybody for that mess at the beginning. Somehow I had to leave and come back. There's no way to stop it. Okay. First one is called Night School. As if the days weren't enough, my dreams accuse, charge me with neglect, with fraud and laziness, cheating my way through contracts I signed without thinking, till at the end I wake when all is discovered and the cuff snap closed on my useless wrist. Sometimes I forget, no matter where or when, you're always walking through the fire, needing to be quick enough to dance across the coals so lightly none can burn past the callus of your feet. needing to see even as the flames catch in your hair and burn off your eyelashes, how beautiful they are, like lightning and fireworks. That beauty so dangerous, you pay for it again and again as it resolves you to charcoal, rough tool for the artist's hand, ready to inscribe new letters, hieroglyphs, instructions for survival, writ in dark tattoos on what is left of you. And this other one is like Mark's, a poem about trauma and also a poem about my mother. From the instant of that first revelation, when you were bathing my 4-year-old body and I told against his orders what he had done, when my words hit so hard you thought you'd lose the child in your womb, you shed trust like an old skin and rose like a hawk, all eyes and sharp intent, flexing your wings and claws. Nothing would interrupt your watch, not night or day or distance. You never lost the thread of my story, saw how it hobbled me, made me stumble, dragged on behind me like a dead weight down every street and avenue while you watched, awake through all the nightmare years, flexing your wings and claws, ready to stoop like a hawk to tear at any threat. As we watched the stars and seasons past, reached for sweet dreams, fed ourselves with hope, with music and stories, the scent of lilacs and lilies. You flexed your wings and claws. When I fell, when I lost my way, when I could no longer walk or talk or pray to see tomorrow, you watched my witness in hard times, in the dim cellars and locked cupboards, where unhealed wounds opened their mouths in anguish to the poisoned air. Nothing could dissuade you or evade your eye. You knew my heart in all its broken places, guardian with ferocity enough to keep me close, flexing your wings and claws, wise enough to know some wounds never heal, some scars stand forever, and even the splendor of your wings, the power of your claws, could only promise what might not always be enough to save us. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm glad you made it back in. That happens sometimes. And it happened twice during this very meeting, so not surprising. Our actually next to last reader is Julian, who is coming to us from Malaysia.
Hi.
Let me, you said you wanted to share. Go ahead.
Yeah, can do it. That wish. I hope when I go, the morticians avoid giving me a makeover. Frankly, I would object to the fakery. I don't want to be gussied up with lipstick or powder. Let my cheeks remain sunken, wrinkles showing forehead stay creased. Let those who want to peek in see me for who I am, authentic and without selfie-ready cosmetics. I'm resigned to the way I look. My rough-hewn, scrunched-up face is a rock climber's nightmare. My nose is a love child between a cauliflower and a ginger root, past their sell-by days. My crooked teeth are a pile-up of white and not-so-white Fiats on the federal highway. Leave me open-mouthed for the morbid drive-by mourners to gasp, unable to resist whispering to each other indignantly. They should have shut it. Certainly not. Even in that, I want my pouty, petulant pie hole wide open, just in case I choose to get up and read a poem at my own funeral, or object to the gushing, over-complimentary ChatGPT-assisted eulogies, or just to leave a loud sigh or sarcastic snort, or yell, uh-huh. So that's what you look like, God, at the end. It might lift a few spirits. Also leave my eyes wide open so I can check myself in the mirror on the way to heaven. I want to be seen as woke when I question St. Peter over his cock-crowing denials. Unfriend. I can't unfriend a dead friend on Facebook. I can't delete the number on my phone either. What am I expecting? A phone call? A text message? Heaven really needs to expand its cell phone coverage. Hell only makes collect calls. I never pick up those. I know it's just a spammer trying to sell me something I don't need. They must have a lot of free upgrade plans down there. Their marketing teams are killers. Friendship online can be a tenuous thing. Is a friend on social media a real friend? Or just a means to an end? Like a creeper on a wall clinging to a boundary or a border between two countries without immigration checks or customs clearance. I have too much baggage anyway, and always need to unload. I grieve at birthday reminders. I reread your last post, your last messages. You are a haunted house with broken windows. I peek in to see your ghost come out and play, I say. You laugh, smile, then walk away. Not my time already, but why did yours come so early? It's like you took an elevator up and pressed the top button. You should have gotten off earlier. You missed my floor. I'm still here and all the elevators are broken. They only go down now. I take the staircase sometimes just to hear the echo of you. I could use a hug tonight. Do you give lots of those up there? Do you receive any from the angels? I never ever saw God as the huggable kind, just an old guy with a long beard, with a mean streak, put us all on one planet and left us there. Go forth and multiply? We overdid it, I think. How do you embrace 8 billion people? Even 1,000 friends online is too much. One hug truly given is all I need tonight, but ghosts and gods don't hug, do they? Invisibility is too high a wall to cross for now. It's a boundary you can't see, but always there, a border on a map made up of broken lines. This border between us, it's made up of broken hearts. I'm just glad there's no unfriend button on your end, because I'm never going to unfriend you on mine. And Boehm, thank you.
Thank you, Julian. I'm going to read a couple poems to end us off today. This one's called Centralia is Burning, and it's about a town in Pennsylvania, Centralia, that has been on fire for decades. A town is just a town until it's empty. Then the echoes multiply, shadows brewing in every corner. Centralia, a mining town in Pennsylvania, has been burning from below since 1963. The houses and lawns fall into fissures in the earth, feeding a fire that cannot be quenched, claiming the streets and fire station, children tossing footballs, the browsing deer. The highway cracks and buckles, and the trees turn white as bone. Tourists arrive by the busload, hoping to leave their mark on trees and houses belonging to no one. Archaeologists of emptiness They wander up and down the shaky staircases, following a flashlight's beam, exclaiming over ancient coal-fired furnaces, while others spray paint "fuck" on screen doors, rifling through the private lives of people who are dead or elsewhere, lives erased as thoroughly as gravestones when the names and dates have worn away. And I actually did visit that place. This one was published in Sheila Nagig, and it's called The Shop Within. Some of you may have seen it. It has an epigraph by Major Jackson, a poem that appeared in a Detroit journal. It must be the supermarket inside me. The Shop Within. There's a tropical fish store inside me, a humid space where one can hear the burbling of the filters night and day, mumbling like drunks. Every day I walk the narrow aisle and in the dim light watch the round mouths of sucker catfish, those prehistoric tanks with tails, work their way across the algae on glass walls, the gravel substrate. The melancholy discus drift, stopping to feed on knots of tubiflex. Ghost knives arch like eyebrows. Sometimes I'm called upon to net and bag a flash of neon tetra or some angels for a stranger who wants his tank to match his couch. He doesn't care these colors are alive. I know the customer is always right. Still, I lose my patience with these people who wouldn't listen if I tried to argue. The fish cannot be saved here or in the Amazon. I have learned just to place the bags of living colors in the cart and turn away. Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you so much for reading for us, Angela. It's always wonderful to hear your work. I can't ever hear these poems too many times, and many of them were new to me.
Thank you, Robbi. It was such a pleasure, and thank you for creating this beautiful poetry community. I can sense the just such high accomplishment and camaraderie and cross-fertilization in your work. It's just such a gift to hear such accomplished poems in an open mic. It's really quite rare that every single poem, just I learned something from each of them. Thank you.
Thank you, and I hope you'll come back to some of our other readings.
I would love to. Thank you. Yeah, I just to listen even. Thank you.
Angela, I have
Yes.
a question. This is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Are those working typewriters?
They are. Yes, you
Oh
noticed.
my goodness. Do you, I have to ask, do you actually use a typewriter?
I do. It's become a big part of my writing process since COVID because, you know, I grew up with typewriters and I love the visceral feeling of like actually stamping letters and words onto paper and the sound. It's like a musical instrument. So yeah, I'm actually obsessed with typewriters. I fixed
Yeah.
the
I
storm.
miss my
Angela,
Royal Standard.
Oh,
Did
wow.
you know that there is actually a piece of music for typewriter?
Is
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Oh, I would love to.
Oh, I'm sure you know it because it's so commonly played on television.
Oh,
You-
okay.
You would
You'll find
recognize
it
it.
on YouTube. If you
I will
look,
look for
if
it.
you look concert with typewriter, I'm sure YouTube will find it for you.
Okay, thank you, Rosie. That sounds fun.
And you'll say, oh, I know this. It's got the ding at the end of every
Oh, the little
line.
ding. Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
But thank you for everyone for reading. And it's always just wonderful being here with you. And I'll write to Louisa. Thank you for telling me what happened. I hope she's okay.
Hope so too.
I know how this is. We all do.
Well, lots of love from Peru to everyone. It was a wonderful reading as always. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. I'm so happy. I'm now going off to have lunch, a late lunch. My husband had to suffer to wait for an hour.
Well, I have to cook for the holiday because I'm going to spend all day tomorrow with my son and daughter-in-law who are going to have a baby in a month. And we're going to plan the shower, and I'm going to hash out with them which rocking chair they want us to buy for the nursery.
Okay,
So
bye-bye,
lots of
friends.
things to do. Bye-bye.
Hi,
Auf
thank you,
Wiedersehen,
Robbie.
Rose.
Thank you so much, all
Bye,
of you.
everybody.
See you
Bye.
next time.